been now 47 years staying with my mother. It's quite an experience to understand, to see from the point where you're young, when you recognize the whole conversation and equation, to the time that you grow up where you almost become the best friends. I think in many ways I've seen her struggle from the time when I was staying with Swamijis in the monastery with the monks, and I used to regularly write letters and build up this whole conversation of proximity, not though being together. I think that was one of my first time of being very conscious of this experience of being with her, which was in 7th grade, 8th grade. And post that, I cannot remember not one single week when I didn't write to her or had a conversation with her, though I met her only once or twice a year for almost 3 or 4 years. But in all these, the proximity or the conversation used to be very intense of dependency, and the kind of encouragement or the kind of strength that she always returned back as education or as about the fact of life or living, or encouraging to me to be what I should be, was completely a different paradigm shift to the life that eventually I evolved to. I think that was the biggest strength of a moment of time that I can remember as to what I received from her. And it was extreme poverty. She was really struggling her time at that period and trying to make survival situations happen and trying to make a lot of ends meet, but every time remembered that to support and sacrifice, to become a whole space where I could be what I had to be, was her prime perspective. I think that struggle I could start to realize over the years as I came into the 11th and 12th grade. It was immense sacrifice, I think, is the only parameter that I can remember of that conversation. But what is also very important, I think, in all this perspective is over the time you tend to start growing out of that space of being dependent on a person as a mother and rather grow back to become more a friend. I remember a very nice paragraph in Mankutimana Kagga. He says, Kari Rurul Agasadi Nakshatra Nuriddenu Manavana Kange Bekundu Manebelaku Durada Daivavantirali Manusha Sakha Bedudu Badajiva Mankutimana. It's so beautiful that at sometimes you think you have a divinity, you have some exuberant light that might help to protect you, but at the end of the day, for a traveler, all he needs is that one speck of light of a house where he knows where the next direction will lead him to. In the same way, it doesn't matter, you might have 1,000 people on your proximity, but at the end of the day, just that one friend will be accurate enough to be dependent on. I think for me, my mother has been the best person or the best friend, the most trustworthy individual on the planet. Whether it comes to financial connectivity or in terms of dependency of sharing any information whatsoever I wanted, I think she has been the most supreme backbone. Every day I come back home, 11, 12, the little conversations that I do for 15 or 20 minutes with her is absolutely supreme. It rejuvenates you to go back to the next cycle of what you want to do or what you want to be the next morning, or to surge into a new business acumen or a new travel plan or a new expedition or a new business idea. So everything is characterized by that one connect, which is been my conversation with her. I think that is what is supreme and most complete. And I cannot see a more better mathematician, a more better literature figure, a writer, a person who could speak many languages accurately, a person who could actually digress from the actual situation of complexity and resolve things, be the best guide and tell me not to do a lot of things, put that little position of fear that she exists, therefore I must behave or I must do this, I must not do that. In some way, it's the presence of that perfect godliness. I think in many ways I did realize in this little journey of my life that she was truly the deity of existence, because that connectivity, that connect of what I would say experience of appreciation and awe of a person, at the same time to fear or to joyously fear that there is someone who can control your whole life matrix and personification of what you can do was her. So therefore, I think that is where the connection happens with God. That's where the connection happens with being with the person who gave birth to you, and you revere that existence completely. I think that has been most complete with her. And for me, for what I am today, whether it is my architecture or my appreciation to art or my music or the events that I execute as part of my social sort of joy, or about the idea of my travel, or even my language, my theater, my experience of presentation, everything has been her. I mean, literally, I think the source of that one connection has been her. From the time I was a young child, the way she taught me physics or mathematics, from the time she tutored me to be accurate on every pinch of education, or she taught me art, she taught me theater, she taught me how to dance, she encouraged me to act in plays or allowed me to produce plays as young as I was in the 6th or the 7th grade. I think she's been the biggest source of that great inspiration. And every bit of this today, I know when I go to a boardroom and make a presentation to the John F. Welch Center, or when I make a presentation to the biggest sort of core groups, corporates for AstraZeneca or somebody like that, doing their architecture, I know that that source of inspiration to present certain projects in a certain way, or design projects in a certain way, or converse projects in a certain way, has been an embodiment of that experience that she taught me. Thank you, Mother. Thank you. You've been the best friend, the greatest friend I can ever have, and the most trustworthy personification of any existential sort of being that's connected to my life on the planet. Thank you, Mother. Recollect the most beautiful conversation, I think it's just the time that we share without talking much to each other, but saying a few things that has gone by through the day, or recollecting some necessary information, or it's about food, or it's about comfort. So every day evening, I think that's the most beautiful time that we share when I'm in Bangalore with her. She waits every day, and I don't think anybody would ever do that. She waits every day for me to come back and have dinner, or a quick bite, or just a glass of milk or something before I hit bed. And then we share a few conversations, a few discussions, a few moments of what has happened by the day. And then we recede back to the day. So I think that's the most cherished moment of my life. Every time I'm in Bangalore, every evening, it's the most beautiful kind of a event situation that I will always hold back in memory. And these are the moments which actually create a connect between people. And a few questions and a few reciprocations and reactions is what brings the bonding together. Not, again, as I said, verbatim of expressions of what one feels towards each other, but just that moment of being together. And that experience cannot be any way better with any other person ever on the planet, and it has to be her. And that is my most cherished moment of all my life that I share with her. If I have to recollect one of my most memorable moments of an event or a conversation, I must say it was when I was in the 7th grade, or probably the 6th grade. I remember a group of us as friends just got together and just out of humor decided to start working on a play which was celebrating the idea of Ravan, and this whole just humor idea turned out to be very serious, and I managed to put together almost around 70 or 80 people those days when I was young together, and started working on a play And then we had organized everything, including the dates, the venue, and the tickets, and without telling anybody whatsoever in the family. So, but then I chanced upon the idea that I had to somehow convey that to one person, and then I went and spoke to my mother about it. For some reason, I just felt that she would encourage that whole idea. And I was in for a rude shock that she was the first person to readily stand by me and help me organize and get the act up completely together with 80 of us as kids together to present a play. It was a ticketed event that we did at that time. And she was the complete backbone of that whole process, organizing, getting the tickets sold and structuring the whole event and bringing the guests of honor for the event and introducing the whole cast. And it was a spectacular event. I think that was one of the first lessons of organizational disciplines that I learned in my life. And sometimes we don't put words to the method in which we learn things, or we don't sort of nomenclature a lot of events that we live by life and just let it go by. It's like you don't tell your friend every time that you like being with him, or you love him, or you are really impressed about the proximity of his presence in your life. You don't do that. You do that to your wife, you do that to your girlfriend, you do that to probably your employee, or as a part of your appreciation you say that to your boss, or you do that to a person who serves you or helps you or in some way. But with a true friend you don't have to get into these expressions of conversation, because, or with a person like your mother, you don't have to say it. It's so Indian in that sense of nature. I think every person experiences this act with the mother, and she's the only one person that you can experience the joy of dependency, and you don't have to put it in verbatim. And I think the greatest organizational or group event management thought process that I got was from that one event that I learned, which was absolutely fantastic. It was about mathematics, it was about number, it was about financing, it was about timing, it was about exhibition, it's about taking the information to the masses. Everything was put together in that one event. And I think in some intrinsic way I learned many things, and this was my mother, the artist, and my mother, who was a great showman. She was an absolutely accurate financer and organizer, and a great backbone to encourage events of such order. I think that was most impressive of my experience as a child with my mother.